Here, guys, a little quiet, a little quiet. We're gonna wake you guys up when we get to the natural AC down here. So, guys, as you heard the announcement, my name is Miner Nick. As we head underground today, please take your time. There is a lot of water, but we do have some handrails inside the rock walls y'all can use. And also, please feel free to take pictures and ask questions. I do want you guys to have a great time today. The gold mine you're going into, it was created over 120 years ago in 1898 and was shut down 8 years later in 1906. When the mine was shut down, they were going to flood this entirely with water and then blast every entrance shut. It remained like this for a total of 85 years as they didn't want people going inside this mine and getting lost or getting hurt. Well, the family that owns this today, they were a coal mining family from Kentucky. They bought this in the 80s because they wanted to try their hand at gold mining. What happened is by the time they cleaned out the mine, gold would plummet to price to $200 an ounce. Now at this price, there is no room for profit, so the first underground tour went into the gold mine in 1991, and that's where it leads us today. You guys will please take your time and follow me underground.
Is that slippery?
No, sir. Not
Okay.
as much repression washing.
I feel like I'm in a horror ride. This feels exactly like a horror ride. I don't know why. Whoa. Whoa. Wow. Wow. I can see the sun.
That's iron. Because after it gets wet for like a long time, that iron smells
Hey guys, so in 1828, there was a gentleman by the name of Benjamin Parks. He's going to be walking around the woods of Dahlonega one day when he trips over a rock, and this rock turned out to be a solid piece of gold. Word gets out that there's just gold lying right around the ground, so of course you had people move here to try to find it for themselves. Well, in 1829, over 15,000 people migrated to Dahlonega, and that kicked off the first gold rush in the United States. Now, the first style of mining used here is still commonly used today. In fact, some of you guys have tried this before the tour, and some of you will try it after. It is going to be known as your river or placer mining, which was named after the gold being found, known as placer gold. But you're going to have a gold miner in every river, creek, and stream that they could find with a gold pan, hoping to find their fortune. But when this didn't pan out, they thought they got all the gold from the area. They were going to travel west to California in 1849, which was the year of the California gold rush. Well, when they made it out west, these gold miners, they realized that the 49ers, they're using the exact same gold panning technique. They were also using a new one in which they brought down to Georgia to try to get the same results. It was known as hydraulic mining. So instead of in the rivers with the gold pan, these miners now use these large, powerful water cannons, which they call giants. They would wash the mountains down into the rivers, well, they have sluice boxes to collect the sediment and to hopefully collect the gold. The problem is it was washing the mountains away way too fast and ended up destroying the environment. This method of mining was made illegal, and it still is today in certain states. Now from this style, they did uncover one last mining technique used here in Dahlonega, and that was known as hard rock mining, and that's where you guys are standing today. This right here is a hard rock gold mine. Gold is not only found in the river or the soil, but inside a mineral, and that mineral is known as quartz. If you guys take a look above you, this is a solid quartz vein here. And yes, there is still gold in there today. But guys, also, you can tell there's a large opening behind me. Over 120 years ago, that was a solid vein of quartz. Well, the vein of quartz that once stood behind me was 22 feet wide and over 200 feet deep. That made this the largest one to be found in hard rock mining history. Well, as you guys can tell, the miners did blast all this quartz out. And one day, they extracted a total of 54 pounds and 9 ounces of gold. Now, back then, it was only worth $500,000. But today, gold is at $2,000 an ounce, which means it would have been worth around $1.7 million worth of gold. Now, unfortunately, it was turned into gold bars and gold coins, so the miners did not take it home. But hey, don't worry, they got paid 50 cents a day. It's pretty fair, right? Definitely not. So guys, as we head down, we're going to stick to our right-hand sides. We are going to be passing another group. But if you guys will please take your time and follow me underground today. If you guys take a look across the railing, you're going to see that there is another vein of quartz. Once again, inside this quartz is the gold. Now, when people usually think of gold, they think of it as in a form of a nugget or something you can visually see. This is true, except for that the gold inside this mine was the exact opposite. Because the gold is inside this quartz, it is going to be very small. It is so small that it is known as flour gold because it resembles the size of baking flour. Well, that also means that you're not going to be able to use gold panning to extract it out. Instead, the miners blasted this out of the wall using dynamite and then transported it to the surface to a large building known as a stamp mill. So inside this building contains 150 stamps. Each one would weigh 850 pounds. The reason is it takes this quartz and it crushes it to a powder. That powder is then run through conveyor belts with 3 different chemicals, and those are known as chlorine, cyanide, and mercury, so safe chemicals to be used, right? Definitely a lot. Do not try this at home. But they had to use it. So the reason is the chlorine and cyanide broke down the quartz and the granite and the other minerals. Well, mercury, having a natural reaction with gold, it will collect every single piece. At this point, they're going to melt the mercury away and reuse it, and then melt the gold down into those gold bars and gold coins that Dahlonega used 100 years ago. Well, as you just heard, all 3 of these chemicals are very toxic. It was dangerous to the miners and the environment, and that made this entire process very expensive, which is why this mine was only in operation for 8 years, is because they claimed bankruptcy. That's why we still don't mine today. Now, once again, as we head down a set of stairs, take your time, just watch out for this. This is known as the wishing rock. If you hit your head, you're going to wish you didn't, so try to pay attention, guys. Guys are at the bottom of the gold mine, or at least as far underground we're going in today, because I'm going to show you guys later on is the rest of it is still filled with water when they flooded this in 1906. Well, right now, you guys are currently standing 20 stories or 200 feet underground. And as you guys can tell, is the temperature is pretty comfortable down here. It is going to stay 55 degrees all year round, as there is no wind or sunlight in order to change that. Well, you guys can also see here, you do have a waterfall. All the water in this mine is natural because above us are pockets of water called aquifers or water tables. Well, since the water creates a pathway, the miners are faced with the problem. They had to figure out a way to keep the water separated from the working area, which is where eventually they would build these creeks. The reason this is so important is if you take a look on the ground, you see this miner tracks. In 1901, those were electrically powered. And as we know, water and electricity is not a great combination to have. If you guys want to take a look right here behind me, or behind you guys, so this is known as hard rock mining, and the reason is the rocks and minerals down here. Well, this being blue granite, it is one of the world's hardest rocks, and the entire mine you're standing in today is made up of it, which is why you'll have to use dynamite in order to mine. Well, the miners, they're going to drill a series of holes. Each one was 6 feet deep. The first process is known as the hand sweep. So it's going to be a hammer and a chisel like this. The miners would hit it and then turn it. Because when the chisel turns, it crushes the rock. But as you guys can guess, this is a very slow process. It is so slow, it is going to take a miner 1 hour to dig 1 foot, and these were 6 feet, but in a 12-hour workday, they dig 2 of them, and they only got paid 50 cents a day. So definitely not a lot of money compared to these prices. But again, all they're going to do is take the chisel, they're going to hit and turn. So 12 hours a day, 50 cents a day. Very tiring, very slow process. That made this the safest method out of 8 years of production. And of course, eventually they are motivated into developing faster techniques, which we'll talk about further underground today. So guys, for this next part, we're going to be heading to a wind tunnel. You'll find it right around the corner over here. A miner's term, and that is W-I-N-Z-E. That's because it described when a tunnel would go further underground to another level. Now, unfortunately, we will not be going down there today as it is filled entirely with water, and that water goes about 900 feet underground. Along with this 900 feet, there is also 4 miles of tunnels, and that makes this the largest hard rock mine east of the Mississippi River with 5 miles total. Well, in order for miners to be working down there, they can't have the water. They ended up having a 12 to 15-year-old who would work down here for 10 hours a day, getting paid 25 cents a day to use his hand pump over here to pump all of the water out of the mine. It was such an important job. If this wasn't done for 2 weeks, the entire mine during the day would start to rise and flood with water, which is why we currently have to have automatic pumps down there today. Now, so you guys can see where that water is because it is very clear. You're going to see there's a light down there. That light is 5 feet underwater already. It makes it very fun when you have to go down there and change the light bulb. So trust me when I say that water is very cold. But you guys take a look. Like I said, you guys rotate out. I'll wait for you outside this tunnel over here. Sorry, I'll do it back here, guys. Further into the gold mine, however, this mine is going to start to have a few low parts, so make sure you guys do watch your heads. Follow me this way. Yeah, it's a pretty cool story behind it, especially the way they found it.
Yeah.
Now it starts to drill. So I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, but every tunnel you guys are walking today, at one point in time was a quartz vein or had quartz running through it, which is why it's no longer here. That is also how a miner knew where to dig. What they're going to do is they're going to follow a quartz vein till it stopped, found another vein till it stopped, and just kept repeating this process over and over again. Which is why as you go further underground, it's more like a root system, just different directions, ups and downs and all that stuff. Well, when a quartz vein would go in the upward direction, they called this a stope. And if you guys take a look above you here, this is a stope right here where quartz used to be. But guys, you can also see is that there is a blue hose up there. Make sure y'all watch out. That leads to the men's restroom upstairs. So alright? I am joking, don't worry. So, 1900 comes around. These miners are motivated to get away from the hand steel method. Well, in that year, they introduced the first air-powered or pneumatic drill inside this mine, which is going to be known as the stoper drill. Except it is going to go in only one direction, up. And we all know gravity does. Well, surprisingly, the concern was not about the miner or the drill falling down, but what was inside these rocks. So as they're mining, these rocks are releasing a dust and a mineral known as silica. The problem is as they're breathing it in, it damages the lungs, and eventually it turned the miner's skin blue. This is going to be known as pneumonal ultramicroscopic silivolcanic coniosis, or silicosis for short. Now this weighs 150 pounds. 2 miners, 12 hours a day, have to hold this above their heads 30, 40 feet up, just in order to get paid $1.25. Well, soon they're going to realize is that $1.25 in silicosis, it's not a fair trade-off. And eventually, in 1903, this is redeveloped into a safer model, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. It is more dangerous, however, it was more efficient than the hand steel. Because instead of taking 6 hours to dig one down a drill hole with this, it took them only 3 hours. Now we're going to be heading further into the gold mine today, except that this next part is the lowest tunnel in the mine we're going through today. So make sure you guys do pay attention and watch for your heads. Right this way. So, 1901 comes around. this is going to be the first gold mine in Georgia to have electricity. And that meant that the city of Dahlonega had power before Atlanta, Georgia did. How that is possible is the Consolidated Gold Mine Company, they're going to generate their own electricity by using a large water wheel on the back property. Well, eventually that same water wheel would power the entire town. Now the light bulbs using underground, they're not going to be the LED ones we have today, right? Instead, they were using glow-lit Edison light bulbs. The problem isn't on how bright they were. It's going to be the way that they were set up. It is on something we call a series circuit. What that means is if a miner hits their head or a hammer busted a light bulb, this entire mine shut down without power, just like the Christmas lights do. Well, just like the Christmas lights, what they did is they had a miner with a lantern walked into this mine, and they had to check every single light bulb just to find that one problem. Yeah, it took a lot of time. Well, for the first 3 years, all the miners had down here for light was only a candle, which you guys can imagine is that won't be very bright. But even in 1901, while they had power, candles are still used in the subtunnels because out of this entire mine of 5 miles, only one tunnel had electricity, and that's going to be that one that we just left back there. The reason is 20 stories underground, it gets pretty expensive to run the wiring. Well, that does lead me to my favorite part about the tour. I get to turn off the lights on it, guys. I'm going to turn off the lights. Don't worry, if you don't like the dark, just close your eyes. You won't know the difference. I'm joking. That tunnel at the end will still have the lights on. Everybody ready? Here we go. 1, 2. Gets a little dark down here. Well, just like the miners 100 years ago, I brought a stick of dynamite with me today. I'm joking. We'll save that for later. But I brought a flashlight. At least one that the miners would have used in 1898 to 1901. So this one candle is not a gold miner used. Well, when they started their day at work, their supervisor gave them the candles they needed. You're good, don't worry. They gave them the candles. So it said that the miners, they're only going to be handed 3 candles that they had to make last for 12 hours. It's going to be a bit of a challenge. The miners, they got smart. They partnered up in teams of 2. That way the first miner would use their 3 candles, and then the second miner is going to use their 3. Well, by the time they got to the last candle, the 12 hours be over, they should hopefully have just enough light to make it to that tunnel back there, and then follow the lights outside the mine. Now, as you guys can tell, this isn't very bright. However, this is brighter than the Edison light bulbs were in 1901. So either way, you had to walk around and figure out where you were located. You had to identify course running through these walls, and even use the drills and hand steels. So imagine being a miner holding that chisel while someone's going to swing a 15-pound sledgehammer. That's why that's the new guy's job, right? Guys, I'm going to turn the lights back off one more time. Turn it back on. Here we go in 1, 2, 3. Probably would have been smart to find the light switch first. If you guys will take your time and follow me at the end of this tunnel here. Sorry. Those miners using the stoker drill. The problem is it was creating that silica dust and destroying the miners' lungs. If they are going to continue mining, they're going to have to figure out a way to eliminate the silica, but stay more efficient than the hand steel method. Where in 1903, they're going to introduce this. It is known as the drifter drill. Now, once again, it is another air-powered or pneumatic drill, except for this time, it has a hollow chisel that would shoot water to the front of it. The reason, as you're digging into this wall creating the silica dust, the water will hit the silica, make it fall to the ground. This way, the miners don't breathe it in. However, every single drill inside this mine is going to have at least one problem. The problem with the drifter drill was the noise level. Well, off of one air compressor, it is going to power 20 of these at a time, while next to you in the larger area were 3 or more. This is over 100 years old and is also inside the mine as it was underwater for 85 years. But luckily, there's a thing today we have called WD-40, and that allows us still to work, and I'm going to turn it on for you guys. Gotta recommend if you have sensitive hearing to close your ears. If you do close your ears, when I go like this, you want to unplug them and listen to the echo. You guys gonna be okay? Alright. Here we go, guys. In 1, 2. So this will actually echo to where we started the tour in the beginning, and this being over 100 years old still works today. It is impressed by craftsmanship. Things back then, they were built to last. Now, as you just heard, that was a little loud, and I say little because when the miners used it, it was 10 times louder. This is going to have to go against the rock wall. There were 3 Fenways next to you, and that was only 1/4 of the pressure. But also imagine this, when the miners are using it, they used it for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so they lost their hearing. After so many of them did, they did try to fix it by installing a rotation system. Miners would work 2 weeks on this, and then they're forced to take 2 weeks off. It only saved a hearing for 5 more months. That's also why you're going to get paid $8.75. There's a higher risk, so a higher reward. Now, I told you guys earlier that you were standing 20 stories underground. Don't worry, you still are. But currently, you are all underneath another gold mine. And the gold mine above you guys are one of the largest ones spread across the United States. Right now, you are all underneath the garden center of Walmart. So you guys go. You've all been Feel free to take pictures, take a look. Just don't turn it on or touch it, guys. And I'll wait for you right around this corner over here. Please take your time. They're a little slippery, but if you guys will start following me up this way to the surface. We enjoy that you guys spent some of your time with us today. If you guys have not done your gold panning, that's what those silver tokens are for, free gold pans with the tour. You'll follow me at this ramp. I'm going to direct you guys where to go. If you have done your gold panning, but you're interested in doing gemstone mining, come see one of us miners. We'll be happy to help you guys. But y'all have an amazing rest of y'all's day. Thank y'all very much, guys.
Thank you.